So one common type of vulnerability that we can look at is improper activity exporting. When we export activities, essentially, let's just start from what exactly is an activity. That's probably the best place to start here. An activity is going to be any of the user interfaces that you see inside of the application. So for instance, when I launch up the Diva app, this main page that we see here is an activity. When we're looking at access control, it means that certain activities shouldn't be accessible from specific locations. So for instance, if I go into the access control issues, you'll see that there's a page here that allows us to view API credentials. And essentially, something like this should only be viewable from like a privileged page, right? So for example, if we were to log on to this and be able to access this page, that would be okay. However, in some cases, these pages are exposed without proper permissions, which could potentially allow someone to be able to launch them if they're exported. So I'll go ahead and I'll walk through what this looks like through Drozer, and then I'll discuss a little bit about how you can find these vulnerabilities without Drozer, just to give you a bit more of an idea behind what they look like, because Drozer won't always pick up everything, and you may be able to access some of these activities with some different permissions that maybe Drozer can't access. So we'll take a look at both of those. If I wanted to determine which activities are exported, I can run the following command here. We could do run app.activity.info. Say -a and then jakar.seam.diva. And what you'll see is it will show each of the activities that exist. So there's the main activity, the API credentials activity, and the API creds2 activity. And you'll see that both of these have null permissions. That means that there's no permissions that are required to access them. So what this means is that I can go ahead and close off this application just to demonstrate this to you. And when I do this, what I can do is I can run the following command. So I can say run app.activity.start. And then we're going to target a specific component. So the component is the application that we want to target. So that's the application name. And then we say which of the actual activities we want to target. So for instance, I could target the main activity just by typing in main activity. And oh, I lost connection here. I think that's because I closed off the Drozer app. So let me just relaunch that here. So we're just going to go ahead and reset up our ADB, Drozer.bat, console connect. Okay, so back where we were before, we can run the activity start. So we could say run app.activity.start. And again, we could target a specific component. So we could do something like this. We could say jakar.seam.diva. So that's the application that we want to target. And then we want to target a specific activity. So we could do this here. So .diva.main.activity. You see when we do this, it launches the main activity on my screen here. So you can see how even without having the application active, we'll be able to launch that activity because there's no permissions associated with it. And then what we can do is we can launch that API creds activity. So we could say API creds activity. And it looks like, oh, API is all capitals. So it's case sensitive, just keep that in mind. And as you can see, I can launch the API activity with all of the credentials inside of it. So this is a great example of improper access control, because this general activity here should have some sort of access control. It should have some form of permissions associated with it. However, since it doesn't have any permissions associated with it, we're able to launch it through Drozer just by using this command. You can also launch it through ADB using similar commands, but Drozer is just like a nice little all-in-one place to do it. So to give you an idea of where you can potentially find these vulnerabilities in general, when you're looking at the Android manifest, what you're looking at are these activity blocks here. So you can see these ones are mostly relating to like strings that are used inside of them. So a lot of the time, strings are something that's coded into the manifest files. But a lot of the times we can actually find the actual activity definitions as well. If we just look for them inside of here, So these are all of the labels. These are all of the labels. Yeah, so you'll see here, for instance, like we have the action.main. This one is actually an intent for it. Here are all the activities here. So you can see the activities here, and you can see the activities inside of here as well. So you can see with API credentials, for instance, we have the API credentials activity. We have an intent to be able to view those credentials, but we don't have any permissions actually associated with it. So whenever you see these activities, these could be potential things that we might be able to try to launch inside of the application, right? So this is the general way that that Drozer would be able to find this information is through the manifest. So you can see, like, you can find each of the activities inside of here, and it'll have names inside of them that will be able to tell you, like, the general information about them, right? So this is the general way that Drozer is able to pick up on those. So running Drozer will allow you to be able to find these activities, and really you should try launching every activity that exists that's exported just to see if one of them might have something that it shouldn't be exposing to users, because if it does, that means that it violates access control, which in turn means that you shouldn't be able to actually access that without permissions. So that would be a typical type of vulnerability, and it would be a fairly critical one to find. So this is one common type of vulnerability that exists inside of Android.